There are two kinds of silence in this world. There's the quiet you find in an empty house, the kind where you can still hear the low hum of the refrigerator or the old pipes groaning in the walls. And then there's the silence of the wild. A silence so profound, so absolute, it feels like it has weight, like it's pressing in on you from all sides. I learned that difference 2 summers ago. I was 21, and my life had completely cratered. I'd gone through a bad breakup, dropped a whole semester of college. The whole cliché. I just wanted to disappear, to be somewhere no one could possibly find me. So I took a job that guaranteed exactly that. I became a fire lookout. The position was at the Two Forks Tower, a 100-foot-tall steel skeleton perched on a granite peak, smack in the middle of 1,000,000 acres of pine trees. The nearest paved road? A 2-hour hike away. For 3 months, my entire existence was to live in this tiny 14 by 14-foot room at the top and scan the horizon for smoke. My only connection to the outside world was a long-range radio. It was, in a word, perfect. For the first month, it was heaven. Truly, it was just me, the wind, and the hawks that would lazily circle the tower right at eye level. I felt like the last man on earth, and I loved it. But then, the silence started to get broken. And I learned that being the last man on earth doesn't necessarily mean you're alone. It all started with the radio. My supervisor, a guy named Frank, would check in twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening. Outside of those 2 calls, the radio was dead quiet. But one night, about 5 weeks in, I was cleaning up after dinner when a sound crackled through the speaker. It wasn't static. It was music. Faint, old-timey piano music, the kind you'd hear from a scratchy 100-year-old record. It lasted maybe 10 seconds, and then it was gone. I mentioned it to Frank during our evening check-in. He just chuckled, told me it was probably atmospheric bounce, just a stray AM signal from some distant city skipping off the ionosphere. He said, "The mountains play tricks on you up there, kid." I accepted it. It made logical sense. But a few nights later, it happened again. This time, it wasn't music. It was a voice. A woman's voice, whispering. It was too distorted and faint to make out any words, but it was undeniably a whisper, and it made the hair on my arms stand straight up. That's when I started to feel it. That unmistakable, primal feeling of being watched. I know, it sounds crazy. My closest neighbor was literally a mountain goat I'd named Jerry, but I couldn't shake the feeling. I started spending more and more time with my binoculars, scanning the tree line not just for smoke, but for something else. And one afternoon, I found it. Miles away, at the edge of a rocky clearing to the north, I saw a flicker of movement. My heart started thumping against my ribs as I focused the binoculars. It was a person. They were wearing dark clothes and just standing there, staring in my direction. Even through the powerful lenses, they were just a tiny, featureless shape. But I knew it. I just knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that they were looking right at me. I watched them for almost an hour until they turned and just melted back into the trees. I tried to rationalize it. It had to be a hiker. Maybe they were lost. But the clearing they were in was miles off any marked trail, and they weren't moving like someone who was lost. They were moving like someone who was waiting. After that day, the whispers on the radio became more frequent, and I started seeing the figure in the clearing almost every day. Always in the same spot. Always watching. My peaceful sanctuary, my escape, was starting to feel like a glass cage. I was on display, and the silence I had craved now felt like the held breath right before a scream. The breaking point came during the 3rd week of August. A massive thunderstorm was rolling in, the kind Frank had warned me about. The sky turned this bruised, sick purple, and the wind began to howl, making the whole tower sway just enough to make you feel it in your gut. As per protocol, I disconnected the main radio antenna to prevent a lightning strike. I was officially, completely cut off. The storm hit with a fury I'd never seen before. Rain hammered against the glass walls, and lightning lit up the entire world in searing, blinding white flashes. I was sitting on my cot, trying to read by the dim light of a battery-powered lantern, when my handheld radio crackled to life. This was a small walkie-talkie with a range of only a couple of miles. It shouldn't have been able to pick up anything out here, but the whisper came through, and this time it was perfectly clear. It was the same woman's voice, but there was no static, no distortion. It sounded like she was standing right next to me in the room. She said one word: "Open." I dropped the radio. It clattered to the floor, the sound lost in the storm. My blood turned to ice. That wasn't atmospheric bounce. That was close. I scrambled to the windows, peering through the rain-streaked glass into the churning darkness below. I couldn't see anything but the swaying trees, illuminated for a split second with each lightning flash. Open. The radio on the floor crackled again. I'm cold. And then I heard it. A sound that wasn't the storm. A rhythmic, metallic clang, clang, coming from directly below me. It was the sound of a foot hitting the steel rungs of the tower staircase. Someone was climbing my tower, in the middle of a lightning storm. I lunged for the trapdoor in the floor, the only way into the room, and slammed the heavy steel bolt across. I started piling anything I could find on top of it. My footlocker, heavy cans of food, my water jugs. My mind was screaming. Who was this person? How did they find me? The figure from the clearing. It had to be. They hadn't been waiting. They had been planning. The climbing stopped. I held my breath, my ears straining to hear over the roar of the storm. For a full minute, there was nothing but wind and rain. Then, a soft, gentle tapping started on the underside of the trapdoor. Tap, tap, tap. I know you're in there, the voice whispered, but it wasn't coming from the radio anymore. It was muffled, coming from right beneath my feet. It's so cold out here. Just open the door. I backed away into the farthest corner of the room, shaking uncontrollably. The tapping stopped and was replaced by a violent rattling as she tried to force the handle. The whole trapdoor shuddered under the assault. Then came the scraping, a high-pitched metallic screech, like a knife being dragged across the steel. She was trying to pry it open. This went on for what felt like an eternity. A storm raged outside, and the attack on the door raged inside. I just sat there in the dark, clutching a fire axe, just waiting for the wood and steel to give way. Then, just as the first hint of gray light began to touch the horizon, it all stopped. The storm died down to a drizzle. The scraping and rattling from below went silent. I didn't move a muscle. I stayed in that corner until the sun was fully up. When I finally got the courage to clear the barricade and look out the window, there was no one there. The staircase was empty. The forest was still and dripping. It was over. I grabbed the main radio, fumbled with the antenna connection, and screamed for Frank. He sent a park ranger named Henderson to come get me. I didn't even pack my things. When Henderson arrived a few hours later, I scrambled down those stairs, not daring to look back. I just wanted out. As we were hiking down the trail, I told him everything. The radio, the figure, the storm, the woman on the stairs. I fully expected him to think I was crazy, that I just snapped from the isolation. He didn't. He just looked at me, his face grim, and said, "We need to check something." He led me off the trail, toward that northern clearing I had watched for weeks. And there, tucked under a rocky overhang, was a makeshift camp. A rotting sleeping bag, some empty cans, and a small fire pit, with ashes that were cold but recent. It was real. She was real. But that wasn't the part that haunts me. That wasn't the kicker. Lying next to the fire pit was a small, leather-bound journal. Henderson picked it up. The pages were filled with a frantic looping script. It was a log. A log detailing watching the tower, watching me. The entries described what I ate, when I slept, what music I listened to on my little boombox. Then I saw the last entry, dated the night before. It said, "He hears me now. Tonight, I'm going home." Henderson flipped to the front of the journal. On the inside cover was a name, and underneath it, an inscription. Property of Sarah Mills, Two Forks Lookout. Summer season, 1998. She wasn't a hiker. She wasn't a stranger. She was the lookout who had worked my tower 20 years ago. The one who, according to the official park records, had a psychotic break and vanished from her post mid-season, never to be seen again. She hadn't vanished. She had just never left. And for 20 years, she had been out there in the woods, watching the tower, watching her home, waiting for someone to finally let her back inside.